Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Today, Rich and I are going to discuss Oronde Gadsden, Drake London, and preview the biggest games of Week 8. So make sure you stick around. Welcome to Sharp Football Analysis. Rich and I are here to get you ready for Week 8 of the fantasy football season. Before we do that, I wanted to tell you about a great offer. Right now, you can get all of our Week 8 NFL props for just 1 penny. That is correct, 1 cent. All of our NFL props for 1 cent. Go to sharpfootballanalysis.com, click the blue bar at the top of the page, or click the link in the description to learn more. Our prop picks produced 18.88 units of profit this season, going 154 and 113. We've had a ton of success on our strongest plays this year, going 8-3 on all prop recommendations that have been 1 full unit or stronger. We're off to a great start. You can get all of our props this weekend for just 1 penny. It makes a ton of sense. Come see what we're about. Come see the work that we're doing, and make sure you get involved. Again, sharpfootballanalysis.com. Click on the blue bar. And actually, Rich and I play a reasonably large role in talking about those props. We have a very fun Slack channel where I get to argue the negative side of every prop that we give out and just really bring the house down. And it makes everybody super happy to hear all of my negative takes. Rich, are you very excited to hear all of my crapping on every thought we have about props? Is that fun for you?
No, you got to hear the reason why you could be wrong, and I love when you chime in. Listen, you got a spiteful aura around you. It's very cynical period of your life right now. I hope you're okay, but it was only 29.5 yards. He could get there, right? Like.
I do like those are always my favorite ones that I talk back against. It's like someone's like, I don't know, you think this guy can go over 18.5 yards? I'm like, I don't hate it. Like, I just have to be mad.
No shot.
Yeah, no shot. He gets 18.5 yards. But no, we have a lot of fun. We put a lot of work into the props. And so, come for the week, get them for a penny and kind of see what that's about. And actually, I love playing props. That's mostly what I'm betting these days is props. I think the prop markets are so much fun and so much better than the sides markets.
Sidebar, I tell people if people that come into Sunday chats and like they don't, maybe their season didn't go well and they're looking to like come in and play DFS and they're looking for like recommendations on like what games to enter or to play. And I tell them to not. I say, don't do that. If you have surplus money you want to spend now, play player props, like put it in, go to player. You'll have more fun. You'll get more return on investment than if you just try to jump into DFS. So like a lot of people that probably are now at week 8, they look at the lineup they're going to have to set during this apocalypse. And they're like, you know what? I'm not having very much fun with my season long leagues, but I still like football and I want to have something to root for. I would suggest not playing DFS, although you can play DFS and come into CHS, but if you were choosing one, go play player props, find some angles to play there. There's the markets are vast. You can find something that's in your lane that you can root for. I love live betting more than just actual betting beforehand, but I would definitely go to that avenue as opposed to, playing DFS with your money.
Yeah, and the player props are fun, like you said, because you can find lots of fun things to do, especially if you're in a state that has like all of the big books available to you, and especially if it has DraftKings and FanDuel and things like that, you can really you can really have a lot of fun with that. And even if you don't have those, like I'm in Texas, which doesn't have those options, but I'm able to use Novig, which, by the way, if you go to Sharp Football Analysis, search for Sharp Football Novig, you'll get a great code that'll match you for $100 on your first purchase. And it's a really fun way to play too, and it gives me that opportunity to play props, which again, like I love. So there are lots of options out there to you now that there weren't previously. Let's hope those options continue, even though an NBA head coach just got arrested this morning as we're recording this. But free Chauncey.
Tough morning for the NBA right after the day of kickoff, or tip-off, I should say. So kickoff would be tip-off, but yeah. I'll tell you what, though, man, I've already circled. I win. First thing I did was seeing Win. So I'm in Cleveland, and when does Wemby come to Cleveland? And it's a Friday night during football season. So we're gonna be free. Got it circled. He better play. If he has a rest day, I'm gonna be livid because he didn't play here last year. He literally got hurt like the week before they came. So I mean, what an alien, dude. What, like,
it's wild. because I live in San Antonio. I think a lot of people know that. And I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm a Rockets fan. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I support the Rockets. But and so I genuinely dislike the Spurs. I want that to be very, very clear. But there is something of like Wemby, like you just watch him, and you go, this is different. This is just special. And it's really fun to watch. I kind of think he should be like against the rules. Like I don't think he should be allowed to play. Like because it doesn't make sense. Like it's crazy when he's out there against Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg, like just towering over those dudes. You're like, this doesn't seem fair. Like this isn't what we should be doing. But yeah,
I would love to see him in person just to get a gauge on it. When LeBron was in Akron, and people would come, like celebrities would come to watch LeBron play in high school. We went to a game and a lot of the Lakers came, and Shaq was there with like Ron Harper, and seeing Shaq in person, I actually was like sad for him. Like I felt bad. Like everyone's all excited. I was like, wow, his life is just not normal. Like he was that kind of big. Like, and I feel like Wemby is like they don't make human beings like this. Like how do you live? Like how do you function on a day-to-day basis? I know you can play basketball, but like what's your day like? Like what do you do?
Well, I always say my brother's 6'5" and he already doesn't fit everywhere. And then we had a friend growing up because we all played basketball. We had a friend growing up who's 6'10" who just had a nightmare like trying to do anything. So yeah, I can't imagine.
You can't buy clothes, like you can't get a car. Like what do you do, man?
It's wild. Anyway, I don't know how we got down this path.
Yeah.
I do know how we got down this path. I forgot to take my ADHD medication this morning, but that's fine. That's fine. We do need to talk about the bipocalypse, as you called it, with 6 teams on bye, the biggest bye week of the year. And I thought about this last night, and I haven't brought this to you, and so you might not have a great answer for it.
Go for it.
But do you handle start-sit decisions differently in a big bye week like this? Because we were talking before we got on about how bad the rankings are, like how like you're looking at like you're like, I don't know about Kyle Monangai, and we'll talk about Kyle Monangai later, but like he's like the 24th best running back in the rankings or something like that. And I was thinking that like this is one of those weeks where you just take shots, right? Because most people's starting lineups, especially with the teams on bye and some of the players that we're missing, right? Like this, most people's lineups aren't going to be great. So I want to take upside shots on a Kyle Monangai, or a Alex Pierce really stands out to me as a guy that I want to take an upside shot on this week, or guys like that, because like that ceiling is really what you're shooting for, because most teams are going to have a floor week this week. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just still context sensitive, team to team. Like, what does your lineup look like? How does your opponent's lineup look like? Some teams are hit like hard by this week, depending on how you draft it, and some aren't. Like, right. Yeah. And like some teams have gotten unscathed. So it's just down to like, all right, well, what are your choices? If you want to play Kyle Monangai, well, what's the alternative? Right. Like, so case by case basis still, but guaranteed across leagues this week, we are going to see some players that have not been in starting lineups to this point of the season that like are thrust in the lineups this week. Yep. And you're jamming in the lineups. And some guys that maybe haven't even been good, you're like happy to play this week because of some of the alternatives like you might have even on the waiver wire or on your bench. So like, I don't know, like they take like Jerry Jeudy, for example. Like he's been absolutely terrible, right? But you're like, man, like you're like, man, like, geez, like he might have 12 targets this week. I just got like, I have my other alternative is like, scrolling down, you're just like, well, I didn't play Van Jefferson. So like, here we go. Like Jerry Jeudy, it's your turn, buddy.
Well, that's the thing too about that game. Like, we don't think the Browns going to be able to run in that game, right? And like we've have examples here of the Browns having to throw a lot, and if they throw a lot, it's going to be to Jerry Jeudy. It just so happens that the last time it happened, he caught 3 of them? Was it like 3 of 12 targets?
5 of 13 or something? Yeah.
Yeah, something to that effect. So you just needed to catch him this week. But yeah, like that's the range we're talking about. But like that's kind of my point, though. Would you rather start? I haven't looked at your wide receiver rankings. I don't know who you have ranked higher between Alex Pierce and Jerry Jeudy. But like,
if Alex Pierce higher.
Okay, well there we go. Like that's what I'm saying. Like if I had to guess, or like if I was like, all right, I don't feel good about any of these guys. Who am I going to pick? I'm going to pick the guy Alex Pierce, who's in a good offense, who might get 5 targets in a good matchup, and could turn those into 2 long catches and 1 touchdown, rather than Jeudy. It's kind of my point, right? Like if I'm digging that deep, I might as well take the upside over, the targets that Jeudy might get. Now that we said that, Judy's going to go out there and actually catch his 12 targets for 60 yards, because I think he averaged like 5 yards per catch now. So like that's probably what's going to happen. But I do think it's interesting. You have to change what you're doing a little bit as you get to that context. All right, let's actually talk a little bit about this week. Before we do that, though, let's bring in Warren Sharp to give the Sharp Football Prize Pick lineup for Week 8.
It's time for us to build this week's PrizePicks lineup and turn $100 into $600. PrizePicks is the best place to win cash while watching sports with their easy-to-use app. And now you can play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups when you use code Warren after you download their app. All right, we won our lineup again last week, and we are now up $1,300 on the season using this strategy over at PrizePicks, and you can get in as well, especially if you're in a state like California or Texas where you can utilize PrizePicks. Don't forget, this week we are going to be looking to turn $100 into $500, not $600. We've got a different card up this week, so let's just dive right into it right now. First up, we've got Tyler Algier with his rushing attempts more than 8.5. When he's in a positive game script, especially when he's playing at home, you can see right there on the screen that he is hitting 10 plus rushing attempts in most every game. And now he's going up against the Miami Dolphins, who A, have one of the worst run defenses in the league, B, are terrible defending the style of running that the Atlanta Falcons utilize, and C, they are playing at home, are the Atlanta Falcons. And we know that the Atlanta Falcons, specifically their starting quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., play much better at home. They produce better, they score more points, and they're more likely to have a lead, which would then allow more rushing attempts overall and will allow more rushing attempts specifically for Tyler Algier. So we're going more than 8.5 rushing attempts for Algier. Our second selection is going to be Devon Achane more than 28.5 receiving yards. Why do we like Achane more than 28.5 receiving yards? Well, he's playing in the same game on the other sideline as is Tyler Algier. We think that the Miami Dolphins are most likely to be trailing. We think the Miami Dolphins are most likely to be passing. Maybe not quite as many running attempts in the fourth quarter, but more passing attempts for Achane. And we know that the Miami Dolphins offense is limited in the number of receivers that they have. Darren Waller is also out this week. They already lost Tyreek Hill. Waddle doesn't really have the same chemistry as Tua on the deeper passes down the field. They're not really connecting quite as often as you might otherwise expect. There's clearly something off with this Miami Dolphins attack. A week after they played the Cleveland Browns, where clearly Achane only had 16 receiving yards. That was in windy, rainy weather outdoors. Now they're playing indoors in a great game state to go more than 28.5 receiving yards. We're going to go ahead and ride him more than 28.5. Last but not least, we've got Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans, and we're going more than 197.5 passing yards. Once again, this is primarily driven by likely game state. The Tennessee Titans are 14-point underdogs as of the time of this recording. They're likely to be trailing, and they're likely to be needing to pass the football. We saw last week a new coaching staff came in, and instead of trying to run into a brick wall of the New England Patriots run defense, they called far more pass attempts than run attempts, and they had more success through the air. And as you can see, 255 passing yards from Cam Ward last week in some windy conditions in Nashville. He's gone more than this number 4 of his last 5 games. He's playing indoors in a dome as a 14-point underdog. Doesn't get too much more straightforward than that. We like the game state. We think Cam Ward goes more than 197.5 passing yards. Combine all 3 of these together on our lineup, and we're looking to win $500 to our total, to increase the total that we've won from 1,300 all the way up to $1,800. So this was 5 times multiplier. We're looking to turn this thing into $500 cash for us. Keep in mind, you can go over to PrizePicks and turn $100 into $500 utilizing this slip. They are a great place to win cash while watching sports with an easy-to-use app. This is all over at PrizePicks.
All right, let's get going with another round of agree or disagree, where I throw out a statement and Rich either has to agree or disagree. The streets are saying that this is the best podcast gimmick they've ever heard. It's possible Jimmy Fallon steals this for his show. That's how exciting we are about agree or disagree. I felt a little weird about doing this one because this team plays on Thursday night. We record this on Thursday morning, and many of you, I believe, listen to it on Friday. So some of you will already know, have another data point that we don't have. But I do think we should talk about Oronde Gadsden because he has been such a a topic of conversation this week. And so I guess the agree disagree statement would be Oronde Gadsden will be a weekly tight end one the rest of the way.
I mean, I have to disagree, and this is for the same premises. When week 1 you asked this question with Harold Fannin, and I chose the disagree side, and I just feel kind of similarly. And Fannin has less target competition than Gadsden has, and that's really what it comes down to. I mean, for gamers in bulk like us, like that analyze the games weekly, like this is just another player now that we have to sort through for the Chargers. We already had the wide receiver whack-a-mole game a little bit with Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, and Keenan Allen. Now this is just another player added to like their arsenal. And then when we get Amarian Hampton back, like do they get back to running the football like they were kind of trending towards as well? But I disagree for the sake of, well, one, I think you should pick up like we said with Fannin in week 1. Like when a player shows you that like proof of concept, like what he carried over from college to the NFL early in his career, so you should buy into that player actually being good and roster that player. If a Gadsden's available for you to roster, you should do that. I would want him on rosters where he's available. When a player has the 4th most tight yards for a tight end by a rookie tight end ever since 1985, probably should believe that player is pretty decent at football.
It seems okay. It seems pretty good.
His dad played in the NFL. Also, Oronde Gadsden 1, I guess we would call him. He's not senior because this is Oronde Gadsden 2. Was like the original Brandon Lloyd. Like he just would make like sick one-handed catches, like just really dumb catches. And he followed like in the footsteps. Like Gadsden 2 is he's 6'5". He's got 34-inch arms. He's got 10-inch hands. Like the dude is just like Stretch Armstrong out there. Can make all the contested catches in the world. He's not a huge separator, but that's fine. You saw him still generate yak last week. But putting his game into context last week, the Chargers threw the ball 55 times. He only, and I air quotes only this, had just under 17% of the targets, 16.7%. So like in a regular game, like an average dropback game, it's like a 6-target game. Right? Like a 35 dropbacks, that's 6 targets. He was the tight end 17 in route participation last week. He was the tight end 27 in target rate per route run last week. So I still think like he's a guy that's going to be kind of volatile, especially because he plays against so many capable pass catchers as well.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. That was really my take of it in the waiver column is that, I mean, you're obviously adding a young player who's shows talent. Like that's a no-brainer. This is more like, what are we doing him the rest of the way? And I do think he'll be more of like a streaming option. If an injury happens to one of those receivers, you're going to feel a lot better about throwing him out there. And the other part about it is, you mentioned if Hampton gets back or when Hampton gets back, could they be more run heavy? Well, I think we have more signal that they want to be a pass heavy offense regardless of who's in the backfield, and that the offensive line concerns more morph to that. And now that we don't know for sure as a time of recording, but it seems like Joe Alt's going to be back this week, then maybe we're going to see just this pass heavy team. Because remember the first 3 weeks they were ahead of the Chiefs even in pass rate over expected, or a neutral drop back rate, or they were right there among them. And that was with Najee Harris and Hampton healthy. And so I think that this team wants to be pass heavy, like just at its core. And if the offensive line gets back to healthy, we can be there. And if that's the case, then maybe we support 4 fantasy wide receivers with a quarterback that we like, right? And so, but that's I think the upside case for Gadsden as like a weekly tight end 1. But that target competition is a real concern as we move forward, and might lead to him being more of a a matchups play. So I think I'm with you there, but we agree that you should. If that guy's somehow still available. The annoying part about it is we've been talking about him on the Monday podcast. I think I'm as a deep cut in the Monday podcast like 4 weeks ago. So hopefully you got him a while ago, and we can. Yeah,
I mean his one big bugaboo is you need him to be passive because he's terrible in the run game. Like he's
going to seed snaps to Will Dissly if he's We need them to throw. All right, next one here. Andy Dalton is going to help Tetairoa McMillan reach his ceiling.
I don't know. I mean, Jesus, I don't know. I mean, I'll agree for the sake of, I guess, I'll agree for the sake of that. Bryce Young and Tet McMillan, I've been kind of adamant since like week 3, like aren't a match. Like, and I've
That's
been
why
writing
this question, to be 100% clear. And by the way, you should go read Rich's worksheets at sharpfootballanalysis.com. You should read some of the stuff he wrote about McMillan and kind of McMillan.
I've been talking about it for like
Young.
several weeks, like since the start of the
Exactly.
season. Yeah. But basically, so the rundown of it is, if you look at Tet McMillan, he's playing like 88% of his snaps out wide. He is running one of the highest rates of go routes and getting targets on go routes, just like vertical shots. Like Bryce Young is really not a guy that throws outside the numbers. He's throwing outside the numbers just 37% of the time. It's 25th in the league. He's just not comfortable like playing that way. He's only giving Tet really a lot of chances to win in one-on-one situations, where Dalton is like a veteran quarterback. And we've seen in this current NFL meta, these veteran quarterbacks that have experience playing against too high stuff back in college, have had success when they are inserted into the lineups, right? Like, look at what Jacoby Brissett is even doing for like the Cardinals, right? So these guys, and you're throwing over the middle of the field, being operate under center with play action. So I'm interested to see what Dalton kind of does for Tet McMillan, just because he's more comfortable making some of the throws that Bryce Young isn't making. That's kind of the out that you would have for him. So looking for him to get some more targets against like zone and stuff like that. Tet McMillan against man coverage has been targeted on 32% of his routes. Great number. But against zone coverage, it goes down to 20%, so Bills, this weekend's opponent, huge zone-based defense. So, we're looking for more of those targets from Andy Dalton this week. So I'll agree for the sake of that, but like big picture, like it's still like, I don't know what Andy Dalton's going to necessarily unlock in this offense that we weren't getting out of it before. So I'll agree still for the sake of that.
This week's going to be interesting, I think, for the Panthers offense, because this matchup sets up well for them to do what they want to do, which is just run the football, because the Bills are dead last in yards per carry allowed on running back runs. Daquan Jones, it seems like he's not going to play. Right. And so like the Panthers have actually been fine on defense this year, like in the aggregate. Like they were like 12th and 13th, I think, in yards per play and points per drive allowed. And obviously the Bills are coming off, not a great showing ahead of the bye week. And so like, I don't think I would bet the Panthers like plus 7.5, because it is the Bills. They need a win. They're coming off a bye. Like I still don't think that's something that I would do, but I would not be surprised if the Panthers kept this closer. Like I wouldn't bet the Bills side of it either, just based on that. And if the Panthers are able to keep it closer and they're able to lean on, Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, then that obviously hurts the ceiling that we could get from McMillan here. So this is going to be an interesting game state, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this game to see, Bills out of a bye against this, and another big litmus test for this Panthers defense where we're at. We were joking about DFS, and this year has been, the last couple of years of DFS have just gotten so sharp on the optimal side, like the projection and like the computer side. But last week, a lot of sites were spitting out Breece Hall in optimal lineups because of the projected workload and them being at home. And it's just like, man, like this Panthers defense has been hot. Like I'm just not doing it. And a lot of sharp gamers came off of Breece Hall. But so I'm excited to see them kind of roll this off, because they've been awesome, especially like Breece Hall only had 38 yards rushing. The week before that, Javonte Williams only had 29 yards. And we were like, oh, it's like the rose off the bloom at Javonte Williams. Yeah. He comes right back and picks back up where he was before the Panthers game. Yeah. And then 2 weeks before that, they allowed Devin Achane to only have 10 carries for 16 yards. Like this run defense has been really good over the past month. I believe now they're like third in success rate against running back runs on the year. So I'm definitely excited to see this game, because like the Bills also inherently want to run the football at their core. And, James Cook's had a really, really strong start to the season. So I'm excited to see this matchup play out. It could be a game that's actually relatively low scoring and not that exciting for real football, but is a game that actually is well played.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be an interesting one to watch. All right, one more here. Drake London splits with Darnell Mooney are a real concern. Agree or disagree?
I agree, but there's more to it than this. But I do agree in context of this being the tip of the iceberg. You look at this goes back to last year too, but in the 3 games that Darnell Mooney's played this year in full, I mean, Drake London's been the wide receiver 74, the wide receiver 35, the wide receiver 39. He did have 28% of the team targets on Sunday night. Like if he's at 28%, you're still fine, right? you feel good about that being the number. But he was literally operating like Puka Nacua with end zone targets with Darnell Mooney out. And this goes back to last year, double digit, like getting 15 to 18 targets. And the 3 games that Mooney didn't play or left early, 36%, 39%, 52% target rates. Like those are bonker numbers that aren't sustainable over the course of a season. So you expect them to come down with another pass catcher. It's just that you don't want him to be at like the 19% and the 19.5% where he was before Sunday night in the first 2 Mooney games. The other thing that is impacting Drake London, there are 3 other factors on top of this though, where I think we're not going to ultimately get the run out in terms of ADP. And he was a player I liked at ADP and as well, but I don't think we're going to get there. The first being the Atlanta Falcons defense is immensely better than was projected coming into the season. The Falcons not playing in like these just like back and forth shootout environments like where they ended last year. The defense has been really good. Raheem Morris, Jeff Albrecht's done an amazing job. Their young pass rushers have been incredible. Jesse Bates, like, man, do the Bengals probably wish they kept him? Like, and they probably feel that way about a number of dudes, but like Jesse Bates has been incredible this season. The other thing is that the Falcons, because their defense is good and their run game is good, they don't run a lot of plays. Their game states just don't have a lot of plays, which also hurts Drake London. And the other thing is, as the sample is mounting for Michael Penix, we might have a quarterback problem, like, or at least where the quarterback isn't unlocking a ceiling.
Yeah.
So like so the tip of the iceberg, Mooney playing, yes, I do agree, is like the start of it, and then it just layers down to where I do believe that when all the dust settles with the games and we get to 17 games, we have a larger sample of Mooney playing with London. London is more of like a wide receiver 2 type than a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and that would be disappointing based on what
Correct.
we expected. I think the whole Penix side of it,
he's playing at least. I guess like you're excited that he's not hurt.
Yeah. The Penix side of it, first of all, that guy, when he throws a pass, it's just beautiful. That guy can rip a throw. But yeah, like there's a lot of like not playing well coming out of Penix, and you watch it, you're like, I don't know. And if that's the case, ultimately, it doesn't matter if you're getting 25% of the targets in a slow offense that wants to run the football. And, you know, it's not going to get there probably for London, regardless of what happens with Mooney. But the Falcons defense being, I don't know if I'd go with good. We saw what happened against the 49ers running game, right? And so I don't know if we're going to get all the way to good. But the Falcons defense being,
I thought we were going to get a 49ers run game question. As you know, I don't look at these beforehand. I thought we were going to maybe talk about
we talked about it. We did it last week. Like that was the thing, is I didn't want to do it 2 weeks in a row. But exactly what we kind of talked about happened. George Kittle came back and suddenly they could run the football. And so like
I also wrote about too, it was more than Kittle though.
Yeah.
You know, they like Kyle Shanahan ditched the Kyle Shanahan playbook in the run game. Like they were running just downhill power. Like they ditched the outside zone, the wide runs, and they were playing power football. And this offensive line just might be better suited to play power football than to run on the edges.
Yeah, no, but I mean the Kittle thing definitely did have a
well, sure. I'm not saying it didn't, but like
no, to your point though, like this was a dramatic change, and I think moving forward, like from a like trying to think about, you know, what happens moving forward, was this like, did they see something against the Falcons that they thought?
And that's what you wonder too. Well, they did a little bit against the Bucs. They started to incorporate it, and then that's where the Kittle stuff comes into play. You add George Kittle, but yeah, I do also wonder if teams will approach this because, you know, Mike McDaniel obviously worked with Kyle Shanahan. That's who they play, you know, the Dolphins this week. You know, does he try to get more downhill runs incorporated? Because the Falcons, although they've been better, like their defensive front isn't big either.
Yeah.
So, like, I wonder if that's like the blueprint now we start to see against them. But we did see a little bit of this against the Bucs before, where they tried to run more a little bit of power, like and ditch some of the outside zone stuff. But it really took off last week. But I'm very curious to see that, because Chris McCaffrey just getting downhill instead of running to the sidelines was way more advantageous than we had seen. They did lose their center, Jake Brendel, in that game, though, because the 49ers can't play a football game without losing a starter.
It's unbelievable what's happening to them. Just unbelievable. But yeah, like we talked about it last week, which is why I didn't bring it up. But like the ultimate thesis of last week was, well, McCaffrey, maybe that target share comes down, but like if he's just a better runner moving forward because they get better at it, however that happens, and it doesn't matter. And the target share was still there last week, and he became a better runner, which we might just have It might just be cheat code time at this point, which again is why we suggested everybody you should be drafting McCaffrey at his price this offseason. Because if he gets hurt, things happen.
I was gonna pitch you.
I
was gonna pitch you a show maybe we do where we go back to my rankings for round 1, round 2, and we grade them. We grade the rankings.
You're going to be doing okay, right? With Bijan and McCaffrey, you're going to be doing okay.
But there's misses too. But I mean, because you know me, I'm objective. We just did the London take. I was in on London. I drafted a lot, but I think the reality of the situation, he probably is more of a wide receiver too.
Yeah, Brian Thomas might come out as a bit of a loss. AJ Brown hasn't been ideal. We could say. Yeah, no,
maybe that'll be like a postseason show we'll do, and we'll look back on it.
I was thinking in a couple weeks that we'll definitely do that. Look back at what we got right, what we got wrong. Maybe some of us drafted way too many wide receivers. I don't know who that might be. It's possible that I drafted too many wide receivers this year, but that's neither here nor there. We'll deal with that later. All right.
To be fair though, zero running backs still could have worked this year. I saw a lot of people dunking on is it but there are zero RB drafters that got Jackson Smith and Jigba and still got Javonte Williams
I have some very good zero RB teams.
Right.
Yeah, it can definitely hit.
It's you talked about with the buys. Everything is there's so many variables in fantasy football and how rosters are built and rosters you play against on a weekly basis that just dunking on or saying one strategy works or doesn't work, it's not applicable to fantasy football.
Well, and that's ultimately the rub of it. And I think so much of fantasy football analysis now, because of the people who do it, you and I included, it's so much based on volume that you just end up saying there's a disconnect between a normal home drafter that's going to draft one or two teams and you and I who are going to draft 100, right? Yes. Because I'm going to say that I think my strategy is going to work out over 100 teams, but necessarily because of whatever players I end up, because it is still just a player pick league. Ultimately, I'm going to have 30% of those teams that are just going to be bad because they're going to end up with exactly the wrong players in round 1 and round 2. And that's what's going to happen. Right. But I'm fine because I'm volume based drafting. And so I'm okay with it. Right. But if you're drafting 1 or 2 home leagues and you end up with your first and second round pick being absolutely awful, then that completely ruins your season. And so there's this disconnect that I try to deal with in our off-season shows, but there's this disconnect between are you a guy who's drafting 200 teams or are you a guy who's drafting 2 teams? And the way you approach that has to be different. And I actually did that with CMC too. If you're a home drafter and you drafted CMC, you're really happy right now. But the risk of CMC in your only league for the year, that makes him less enticing to me at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because I don't want my season to be ruined because CMC, tore his Achilles in week 2. It turns out that didn't happen because he found some type of amulet that allows him to.
Remember week 1 where we were on Friday? Remember week 1 of Friday where we were?
He was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt. It was wild. We thought we were doing it again. We thought that our entire off-season brand was about to collapse because McCaffrey just wasn't going to play for 7 weeks. So yeah. So here we are. Anyway, that is we will talk a bunch more about that as we go.
And the crazy thing is if Christian McCaffrey does get hurt this week or 2 weeks from now, people will still be I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, and he's completely paid. At this point, he's paid off already. He's got you the wins. Anyway, it's yeah. We'll talk about this later. But it is interesting. I like to talk about hits and misses. I actually like to talk about my misses way more than my hits because I hate myself. That's a story for another day. Let's talk about the promo.
There's an elementary lesson, man.
Let's talk about some game previews. Before we do that, I do want to mention again, props for a penny. You can get all of our week 8 props for just 1 penny. Head over to Sharp Football Analysis, click the blue bar. Also, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, your podcast player of choice, wherever you're finding this, watching, listening, whatever. Make sure you subscribe. We really do appreciate the support. And also head over to Sharp Football Analysis while you're there. Check out Rich's worksheet previews. They are the best way to get ready for the fantasy football week. I promise you're going to learn a ton. We're going to talk about 2 games here, and we're going to go through those games relatively in depth. But there's even more about those games in the worksheet and every other game every week. So make sure you check them out. All right, let's get started with Dallas at Denver. Denver minus 3.5, a 50.5 point total featuring the Denver Broncos, which is an interesting one for sure. I think the place to start here is just because of how well he's playing. Dak Prescott, it's tough to talk about Prescott here from our purposes because you're not sitting him in a like in a regular fantasy league. You do have like some DFS questions, I suppose, here with Dak. But like even in this matchup, I don't have a ton of concerns with Prescott right now, just because they've been so good and they have so many ways they can attack this Denver defense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last 3 weeks and, you're like, Jets, Panthers, Commanders, okay. But then he still has that Green Bay game on his resume. He was like the first guy to kind of get Green Bay. And now since they've been a little softer. But the big thing is that we already have a proof that, like, even though putting respect on the Denver defense and even acknowledging that, I would say that they are the best defense on paper, right? But like we now have seen for 2 years they've been the best defense, and like they still will be pushed in these games and they will play in shootouts. I mean, they had a 57 combined point game against the Colts earlier this year, 43 against the Chargers, but it was a tight game with some scoring. 65 points this week against the Giants. We go back to last year. We saw them play a shootout with the Bengals. We saw them, and not all, like, you're like, all right, well, some of those games are on the road, but they played at home in a barn burner against Jameis Winston, right? Even this year, the Eagles game wasn't necessarily like a scoring bonanza, but it was a tight game against a good team, and they gave up 280 passing yards to Jalen Hurts, right? Like, so you feel confident that still, like, the Cowboys can move the football on this team, because we've seen good offenses still move the football on this. And like, we might just be in an era too where like offensive play isn't that great, but like, we don't, like, there are no 85 Bears, man, or like the early 2000 Ravens. Like, yes, there's volatility here, and there could be a game where the Cowboys don't play good offense. We saw they didn't play good offense against the Bears, right? Remember, like, that could happen. It's in the range of outcomes, but we've seen teams have success and quarterbacks have success against the Broncos, even while acknowledging how good their defense is. Daniel Jones, 316 passing yards. Herbert threw for 300 yards. He threw for 300 yards this last year. We talked about Hurts. Like, I think there are still a bet of points here. And then when you layer in, like, there are also 6 teams in bye, like, who are you pivoting to? Like, what's the actual pivot? Like, you better have a top 5 guy. Like, so, you're not looking to stream Dak Prescott. So that's the outcome for this game, though, for it to pop. And that's what makes it fun for like a DFS stance, or if you're like, you're betting on the upside of this game for player props, is that we have seen the Broncos get pushed into these games that are still exciting, because it's just the way that the NFL works now.
And I also, on the other side of that, I mean, getting Lamb back and having that Lambs-Pickens connection is just, that is such a, we talked about it before the season, like, these guys complement each other very, very well. And I think from a Pickens fantasy perspective, we had concerns. They were minor concerns because of what his usage was before Lamb went down. But obviously that was him getting acclimated to this offense. Now he's obviously fully acclimated, fully trusted by Dak Prescott. And I think the usage, like the per route usage stuff we saw from Pickens last week, was very promising for him moving forward. Now, he's not going to be the all-conquering wide receiver one that he was. Like, I don't think anybody expected that. And this is a tough spot for him because he plays outside so much, and probably going to see a lot of, Surtain. But overall, I think the usage numbers we saw from Pickens last week were promising as we project him moving forward.
Yeah, we talked about last week too that Pickens, the way he generates targets, is he's a guy that can still win on 6 to 8 targets, and he only had 6 targets last week. But he still had the 82 yards. I mean, he had 2 phenomenal catches too. Also, the one was a sick throw by Dak. But so, like, he can win on a small amount of targets. This game too will probably feature more targets, right? Like, we're expecting it to be more of them to get a significantly more push, or need to throw more than they had to last week as well. And he can still win against Surtain. I mean, we saw Quentin Johnston win against Surtain. Also, we for so long in the offseason were comparing the Cowboys this year to last year's Bengals, right? Yeah. Like, that was kind of it wasn't us, it was everyone, right? Everyone's like, the Cowboys really look like last year's Bengals. Like, they're gonna have a bad defense. They've got a pocket quarterback. They've got these receivers, like, Lamb is Chase, Higgins is Pickens. Like, it all fits together, right? And that does line up for this matchup. And we saw when the Bengals and Broncos played last year, like, that kind of served out really well, because Chase moves around. Lamb also moves around. He's not moving around as much as he did in years past, because Kevontae Turpin can't play outside. So, but he still is getting like a 30% slot rate. He does moonlight in the slot. Surtain's only been in the slot 20 snaps all year, so they can move Lamb around. And then Pickens is still going to see his share of Riley Moss, and Riley Moss is the lesser of evils. He's played better, but like we saw like last year, like Riley Moss had no answers for T. Higgins in that game. So it could be a situation too where Pickens can still win won against Surtain even on some reps, although that volatility there, but like still can get away from Surtain as well. So yeah, it's and then Jake Ferguson's going to keep doing his, Jake Ferguson thing because the Broncos get quick pressure. So the ball comes out and we're going to see a lot of 4 air yard targets like we've been getting from Jake Ferguson. This guy couldn't score a touchdown for 2 years of his life, and now we can't keep him out of the end zone, man.
Yeah, and you forgot about Jonathan Mingo, obviously activated off IR. Really important part of this game. Mingo. And I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you would. Actually, that is interesting because, like you said, with Turpin's been working more into the offense, and I assume that would continue. But like, does Mingo allow them to use? I don't know. It's an interesting. I'm interested to see how this all like shakes out. Even though obviously we're not interested in Mingo as anything else. Just like from you would rather have Lamb play more in the slot, right? Like that's what they would probably want to have.
Remember like the old days too, when remember when the Jets never moved Sauce around, you'd be like, the Bills did this a few times with Diggs. Like when the Bills played against the Jets in division games, like they would just move Diggs to the slot for like 60% of snaps. They're like, oh, you don't play any man coverage. You just play these, Robert Saleh, you're playing cover 4 quarters. Sauce is out on one side, not moving. What if we just moved a good receiver away from him? What a concept, huh? What a concept.
It's a crazy idea. It's a wild idea. Set your players up for success. Seems wild.
We take it for granted, though. It happens a lot less than you'd believe it would in this billion-dollar industry.
All right, let's talk about Bo Nix a little bit. He's obviously coming off a massive fantasy day. I still wouldn't say that was a particularly good game for him, especially through 3 quarters. He hasn't. I don't think he's had a particularly great season overall, but you have him as a trust in this matchup. And I guess it's probably just the matchup, right? Like that's where we are with this.
Yeah. I mean, it's against this Cowboys defense still, and we'll see what they look like. So like last week they played a lot of man coverage for the first time all year, but the Commanders also didn't have any wide receivers.
Yeah.
So it feels like maybe Matt Eberflus got religion and was like, hey, what about this team is starting Chris Moore and Jalen Lane as their outside receivers? Like, what if we just didn't play cover 3 the whole game?
But that's the wild thing though. Like they might be getting Ravel back this week too, right? We'll see what happens with him. He's a rookie. He's making his first start. Going to put a lot into it. But you look at a lot of their guys, you go, it doesn't seem like this defensive coordinator really fits what they have here. And so I have been wary of the Cowboys. Obviously, until we see otherwise, we're going to assume the Cowboys are a good matchup for everybody.
Right.
But I've been wary that I wonder if this is just literally a quick change of how we're approaching playing defense, and we're playing it in a way that fits our secondary better. That they actually are not this bad, right? Because you look at the talent available to them.
Yeah, they're not terrible players. Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs are not bad football players.
Yeah, and I'm so I have been wary of just saying, all right, the Cowboys are going to be bad for the rest of the season, but we need to see it. And we need, like you said, we need to see it beyond just a game against a team without, that was rolling Robbie Chosen out there in the year of our Lord 2025. So we need to see it in a different situation.
Yeah. And even though they played great defense last week, they still gave up 22 quarterback points.
Yeah.
So because they still give up the bag rushing too. Not only allowing the most passing points per game and passing points per attempt, they're also 31st in rushing points allowed to quarterbacks, which Bo Nix comes with an arsenal. He doesn't he's not a consistent runner, but it exists in his range of outcomes to have a spot game where he just runs for 40 yards and a touchdown. So you have that as an out for him too. It's not just a pocket passer. And the Cowboys offense is going to continue to steer the ship a little bit here too, because they're capable of scoring and push the defense into bad spots as well. So like you said, until we see it, but it was an interesting wrinkle. At least they were smart enough to do that, right? Like we said, we take these things for granted when they happen. We're like, that's what he should have done against the Commanders, right? Without any receivers. But that stuff doesn't always happen. So
yeah. No, it was good. We saw a small bump in usage. Speaking of things that don't always happen that should, we saw a small bump in usage for Marvin Mims last week. Still obviously playing as a number 3 option, but this does seem like a good spot for him. Is he a nice bye week option for you? Or are you going to the Marvin Mims? If you're desperate kind of, Well,
we even wrote him up last week, and shout out to my buddy Hilo, who I do a Friday show with, was on Marvin Mims as his hidden hammer of the week last week and got there with him. I saw he was in some lineups that did really well. So shout out to Hilo. It depends on what kind of coverage we get, right? And what kind of the game environment, I think is fine to just take a shot on them. Like any of these guys, any of these Bronco whack-a-moles that you just like have had on rosters, but you've never been confident to play. This would be a week where you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to let the fantasy gods take the wheel on this one. Troy Franklin, do your thing. Marvin Mims, do your thing. Maybe even Evan Ingram, right? Like you might even be like, you know what? I haven't played this dude all year. Or I lost out on waivers and didn't get like a Dalton Schultz or something. And you're just like, you know what? Evan Ingram's out there. Why not? Why not? This would be the week.
What an indictment. What an indictment of Evan Ingram.
I mean, he hasn't been good.
No, I know. He hasn't been playing even. Like that's the problem.
Yeah. And but you want to see what's static for like what the Dallas defensive approach is, right? For a guy like Marvin Mims, right? Because he's been the man coverage guy. It's why we were kind of into him a little bit last week and wrote up like his splits with man coverage. And the Giants, being a man heavy opponent. So if we do get Dallas running back a lot of man coverage, that opens up the window for him to be really good. He's averaging 4.7 yards per out run against man coverage this year, 0.82 yards per out run against zone coverage this year. And like if Dallas goes back to like the cover 2, cover 3 tendencies, he is less than a yard per out run against those coverages and under 10% of the team targets. So again, this matchup, like there's a path for this game to pop, but there also is a path for volatility too here in this game. That's what makes it, I think, a better. This is probably a game that's going to be over-owned in large field DFS, but is it probably still a really good, aggressive play in single entry stuff.
One more here on this game. We writing the revenge game narrative with Javonte Williams. Are we taking that trip down narrative street? How are you treating him this week?
He's probably the one Cowboy I have the most reservations for, but you're not benching him because, again, like what are your pivots in a bye week hell for a running back that we know is going to have 75% of the backfield opportunities? But I think from a DFS perspective, or like he's the guy I'm like I have the least amount of confidence in it. I mean, Denver, they are 9th in yards allowed before contact to running backs. They're 2nd in success rate against running back runs. Only Jonathan Taylor has run for more than 70 yards against the Broncos this season. And it's funny is, going back to week 10 last year, Taylor is the only 100-yard rusher they've allowed. He did it twice. No one else has done it, like going back into last year. The avenue that Javonte Williams is going to have here, if like you're playing him and you're just looking for like maybe a floor-based game or him to get over, is the Broncos have a little bit of receiving production to running backs. Amarian Hampton had 6 for 59 against them. Scattaboo last week, my son, 3 for 34 and a touchdown. Saquon had that nice wheel route on the touchdown, the 4-yard touchdown. So you're hoping Javonte, because he doesn't come off the field, maybe just get some check downs and some of the quick pressures turn into Javonte targets. But he's the guy I think has the most fragility out of the Dallas core pieces.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Bears at the Ravens. Ravens -6.5, 49.5 point total. We record this on Thursday morning, and so we are still a little bit iffy on some of the injury situations. We're going to operate as if Lamar Jackson is playing. He got in limited practice on Wednesday. I think that's where we are. You look at the line with the Ravens favored, and it definitely seems like that's where that's where we're headed with Lamar playing. I will say there were some interesting DMPs for the Bears on Wednesday. DJ Moore sat out. DeAndre Swift sat out. Those seem like maintenance days to me, but those are certainly ones to watch. So if we're operating under this,
had that thing last week too, where I think he had a calf that he dealt with like all the way into the weekend, and then still played.
Yeah, they seem like, because both of them have been dealing with injuries, obviously, and so that feels a lot more like these are veteran guys who are getting rest. But watch them throughout.
Yeah, what DJ Moore had? What did they was testicular torsion? Like it's buddy. That don't sound great, man.
Yeah, that's not ideal. I actually a guy I played football with as a youth got that in one of the games, and it was it's not a pleasant experience for him, as he tells it. But anyway, so we're going to operate under the assumption those guys are playing, but just make sure you're watching much of the backfield. So thinking Lamar's back, if that's the case, right, we're right back in on this offense, right? Like, especially in this matchup, we're right back in on this offense.
Oh, absolutely. We've been writing this up too with him out. Just like I've been putting like the splits anytime like Lamar Jackson hasn't played, just like how terrible like their offense has been for 3 years without him. This year with Jackson on the field, 28% of their plays have gained 10 or more yards. The Seahawks lead the league this season at 23.6%. So like it's like a 5% jump over the team that's been the number one in the league in explosive plays. Without him, they were 31st in the league at 14.9%. So yeah, we are right back in. They're also getting Patrick Ricard back this week, which is, obviously good for them because to open the season, Ricard was in and out of the lineup, likely was in and out of the lineup. I imagine we're going to, out of the bye, we're going to see some throwback Ravens offense. Ronnie Stanley is supposed to be back. Like, I think we're going to see some bully ball Ravens offense. 2 tight ends on the field, 12 personnel, 22 personnel. Like, yeah, I think we haven't seen a lot of it this year because of the injuries they dealt with. The Ravens in general, even counting their defense, like, I'm counting this as like a fresh start. I know you don't get to do that in the records. I'm just saying, like, moving forward as like a team, like how I'm handling them. This is like their week one again, for like, it's a do-over in terms of like how I'm treating them. Cause I think that they haven't been the Ravens on either side of the ball to this point, and they may never be the Ravens on the defensive side of the ball, but on offense, they've got everyone back. They got all the guys. Like, this is a spot for them to kind of show us back to like where we thought we were going to be at the start of the season. And they were still good without Ricard to open the year. I just think that we're going to see some throwback Ravens likely on the field, Andrews on the field, Ricard on the field. Derrick Henry, who you brought up, has his cheapest DraftKings price in, what was it, 6 years?
It's not my stat. I believe it was Kyle Borgani who said it was it's over 2,000 days. This is the cheapest that Derrick Henry has been at DraftKings at a stone $6K.
He's the 14th highest price running back on the main slate.
We're playing that, boys. We're playing that. Like, I mean, I feel very, very good about him in this spot, especially if, like you said, if we're going to get more of that 22 personnel, get Ricard in the game, we're going to run more 2 tight ends. They had been running 2 tight ends even, with Lamar out. Like, we saw Isaiah Likely have an 87.2%, something like that route participation rate in that game before the bye. Yeah. So like,
didn't it feel that game that they were just like simulating to end the whole game? Like, they weren't even trying to like win that game. It felt like on offense.
It was odd, I will say that. But the Ravens still this year are second in multi-tight end usage rate, 59.4%. By the way, you could find that over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. We have some stats up there for you. You should go and check those out. But they're second of 59.4% multi-tight end rate. And I believe they were fourth still with Lamar Jackson healthy, and that was without Likely. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of those bigger formations, which obviously is going to lend itself to Derrick Henry in a great spot. This matchup is perfect for Henry. And so I do think we're going to see that come back. And like you said about the multi-tight ends, I'm very interested in what that means for Isaiah Likely and how we see him used as well. And so I think your point about this being like week one again, like we're trying to answer questions about this Ravens offense, I think that that's fair, because we might come out of this game with very different opinions about what a lot of these guys, and we've already gone over, and we talked about Derrick Henry being a buy low a couple weeks ago. We've already gone over the schedule the rest of the way. Well, most of the rest of the way is very appealing for this offense and for these guys. So we could be in a really good spot here for Henry and for obviously Lamar, for Zay Flowers, maybe Likely if we get that expanded usage. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, and the defensive side of the ball too. Like, I'm not ready to say like they're just going to be the exploitable defense they were the first 6 games either. I mean, well, they weren't that the last time we saw them against the Rams. There was like some wind and Puka got hurt. So if you want to, grain of salt those things, that's fine. But before the bye, they had gotten Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey back, and then now coming out of the bye, they're going to get Roquan Smith and Chidobe Awuzie back. I don't know if Jair Alexander will ever play this year. They're obviously not getting Matabuke back, but I'm not also ready to say like the sample that we saw of the opening season, like we're just going to do whatever we want against the Ravens defense, is also going to be something that I'm excited to see that component of it. Probably more so because I think a lot of people know Derrick Henry's a good football player. They know Lamar Jackson's a good football player, but if this defense still remains as exploitable as it was, then we might have like a Cowboys situation almost. Like, not to the degree, because they're not going to it's not going to operate in the same capacity that the way the Cowboys throw the football, but we could be in some real high scoring Baltimore Ravens games, which we would absolutely love and take that on as well. And then, coming out of the Bears bye 2 weeks ago, Ben Johnson is covering up a lot of Caleb Williams right now. Like, he's like trying to hide him, I think, at this point. And he's been successful out of the bye. That's why I think it matters if they're able to kind of stick with this run game and some of the changes they made with the run game and hide him a little bit because Caleb hasn't played good football this year. And I know a lot of people, maybe even, I think a lot of Bears fans even know it too. And they kind of feel like they're getting by, but they feel like the shoe is still like going to drop. I mean, he still has the highest inaccurate throw rate amongst all quarterbacks. He has the worst completion percentage compared to expected completion percentage. And he's not been good in these games, like really out of the bye either. Like they've really leaned on the run game and have been able to kind of just get by. And the other thing that's the Bear has going on the Bears is like, they're getting like an unsustainable amount of turnovers, like takeaways. Yep. Like they lead the NFL now in takeaways per game. Like that's going to even out. When the Bears don't get a turnover, they're 31st in points allowed per drive on those plays. Like there's a lot still to like kind of figure out what we even have with the real Chicago Bears too as well.
Yeah, and to your point, they are, since the bye weeks over the last 2 games, they're 30th in neutral pass rate, and they're passing at a rate 6% below expected, which is a departure. They weren't like a pass-heavy team before the bye, but they were more like mid-pack. So they've gone from mid-pack in terms of, pass rate in neutral situations.
To be fair, that's Ben Johnson. Like, Ben Johnson wants to do that.
Well, exactly. Like this looks more like a Ben Johnson offense. But the question is, can they keep doing that? Because the schedule is not great the rest of the way for this team. Obviously, playing a very difficult division, and they have tougher.
And Caleb's not Jared Goff, which is crazy to say. Essentially, like he doesn't play point guard like Jared Goff.
And so, like, this is my concern. So, like, everybody who's listened to this podcast throughout the offseason knows how much I loved Kyle Monangai, how many best ball rosters I have him on. I'm excited about Kyle Monangai, but if you're like trying to invest in this rushing attack and you're trying to hope that this turns into like a Detroit backfield light in which we get, Swift in more of a Gibbs role and Monangai in more of a Montgomery role, you need the Bears to be able to stay in these games and to stay in the scripts that allow them to do that. And like with you're pointing out with the defense, if they don't keep getting these turnovers and all that, like, I don't know how viable that is the rest of the way. And I wonder if that, especially if, Lamar is back and the Ravens defense improves this week as they get a little bit healthier, I wonder if that house of cards starts to fall down this week. And then what does that look like? Could that be a good thing for Roma Dunze, right? Because we've seen Roma Dunze's usage kind of crater a little bit as they haven't been passing as much. Is this maybe a buy low opportunity for him if we think the Bears are going to be forced to pass again, even if we don't think they're going to be good passing the ball? If we get more in 8 targets for a Dunze instead of kind of where we've been, do you feel better at him? So there's a lot of there's a lot of things that we could change coming out of this game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. It's a game I'm excited to see, to find out some truths. One, the Ravens defense, and more if the Bears are able to sustain the way they've lived as a team getting takeaways, and then just basically turning into like a morphing into the kind of what Ben Johnson kind of wants us to be. But you also need to have an efficient quarterback for that to like hit its ceiling.
Yeah. Absolutely. One more on the Bears, Colston Loveland. It seems like Cole Kmet is going to miss this week. So it seems like we're going to get our first real run out here of Colston Loveland as a clear tight end 1. How excited are you going to get about that?
Definitely will be, in play for me to, especially as like a cheaper DFS play. And, he's on the streaming spectrum here again. Caveat again, all those things I just said about his quarterback. Like we're not even getting Roma Dunze to be profitable right now.
Yeah.
So exactly. For the price and the opportunity, I'm excited, but also like there's definitely still volatility here. Not great if your Bears fans and you're just watching Tyler Warren just live his best life right now, and your guy needs a Cole Kmet injury to get on the field.
It is obviously Tyler Warren.
We're still waiting for an Olamide Zacchaeus injury for the other top 40 pick to play.
The Penn State legend Tyler Warren, I believe, is what you meant to say. As it turns out, Tyler Warren is the only reason that Drew Aller was considered a first-round pick. Andy Colton-Nicky was thinking about jobs, and James Franklin still had one. So there you go. So congratulations, Tyler Warren, for propping up an entire offense for a season last year. I'm not sad.
The offseason Drew Aller discourse is going to be something. It's going to be a ride. Do you think that there's a chance he's like Justin Herbert, though, where like Herbert got dragged and like he was just in a terrible spot, and like
Drew Aller is better than what he has looked in an offense that doesn't fit him over the last 2 years. That will be the take.
But remember, Herbert, the last 2 years of college got drugged, and they're like, this dude is terrible. Like he's look at this low ADOT quarterback. Like he's still like, and we saw like immediately when he got in the NFL, it was like, nah, man, this is like why everyone was invested early.
No, it makes no sense. Like, it would have made a lot more sense for the Penn State to keep Bo Pribula to run the offense that Koltoniki. Like, this isn't a Penn State. This isn't a place for me to vent all my anger about the Penn State coaching staff. But it would have made a lot more sense for them to keep Bo Pribula, who's obviously doing good things at Mizzou. Wish him all the best. Love that guy. But like, he probably doesn't have the future of an NFL quarterback. But he makes a lot more sense for the offense that they wanted to run. It's pretty damning to Koltoniki that they came out with a first-time starter in a bad situation in Iowa and ran the exact same offense they were running with Drew Aller, who probably is a first-round talent if he doesn't end up going there because of all the problems. And so that makes you raise questions about why you weren't giving your talented quarterback the chance to, I don't know, attack down the field. But again, this is not a point spot for me.
I did it. I set it out there on purpose.
I'm not in a good place from a fandom perspective, but it's fine because they're going to hire Matt Rule, who is James Franklin light. And so everything will be fine and I won't be sad. Don't put it in the paper that I'm sad. All right, let's do some uncut gems here. These are players who are on a lot of waiver wires or they're on benches in deep leagues that we think can outpace expectations this week, put up a starting score. I got half of my Spencer Rattler take right last week. We did end up with the 2 touchdowns. It just turns out he turned the ball over 4 times, which that's unfortunate.
He ran to that Bears turnover machine.
What are you gonna do? Who do you got for this week, Rich?
I'm going with an asterisk guy because we still have to wait for the end of the injury report, but I think it's going to be trending towards where Houston doesn't have Nico Collins or Christian Kirk this week. It's tough to get out of concussion protocol in a week, but then playing on Monday night, it's 6 days actually for Nico Collins. So we'll see if he's able to clear. And then Christian Kirk already not practicing to open the week with a hamstring injury. I'm guessing that he's going to be out as well. So all that signals to me is to Jalen Noel is the player that I would like to take advantage. Now, Xavier Hutchins is going to run the most routes on this team on Sunday. I just want everyone to embrace that it's going to happen. But is the guy that's not a target earner, hasn't got a lot of targets. Jaden Higgins is going to be the substitute for Nico Collins if Nico Collins is out. But the way this matchup lines up, it does serve Jalen Noel to be the kind of the player that benefits the most from like these dominoes all falling. Jalen Noel prospect I liked a lot. Talked about him. I mean, he helped himself out at the combine maybe more than any other receiver. I mean, 4.39 40. He had a 11.2 broad jump, 42-inch vert. Like he checked out in size, was just under 200 pounds. This is a guy that is an explosive player. Almost in the like the Tank Dell kind of spectrum, that can be used in that. Now we'll see if he just uses like a tertiary slot guy or not, but he can create explosives too. For being like a guy that you'd say, oh, this guy just looks like a slot receiver. Now he can create explosives, but that's where we want him. He played 81% of his snaps in the slot after Nico Collins was injured on Monday night. The 49ers have allowed 9.4 yards per target to slot receivers. That's 29th. They are also allowing 8% touchdown rate, which is 28th. They're very good against outside receivers. We'll see if Lenore is able to play, which could maybe, push some things back to some of the outside guys being more competitive. But I'll roll the dice on Noel if you're making me pick a Texans receiver this week.
Yeah, I had him ranked above Higgins in the waiver column as well. I only had him behind, I believe, Tez Johnson, because I do like Tez Johnson this week. And the other thing about Noel is that there is long-term upside here as well, because Kirk is dealing with yet another hamstring injury. We'll see what happens with Braxton Berrios. Please play your rookies over Braxton Berrios would be my thought. But we'll see how that all goes. And the other thing about it is we saw Kirk come back in his first week back when he was healthy and like demand a pretty large target share. Like they need that kind of player. And if Noel's going to be in that role, like you said, in this matchup where it makes sense, we could see him get a pretty big target share. But yeah, the way that they're choosing to use their options on offense is deeply confusing.
I mean, D'Amico Ryans is literally running back the Robert Saleh playbook.
But like he's definitely a good defensive coach. Their defense is amazing. Like he is definitely a good defensive coach, but some of these decisions are just they're not ideal. But anyway, my guy will be Tyler Algier will be my uncut gem this week. This game sets up really well for him. The Falcons are big home favorites. Algier has at least 10 carries in each of Atlanta's 3 wins. He has 16 carries in 2 of those games. He had 10 carries when they kept it close against the Bucs. Even if the spread is not right and we don't get an easy Falcons win, I can't imagine the Dolphins offense blowing out this team, we talked about how the Falcons defense has been playing well. And so I don't think this version of the Dolphins is going to blow out the Falcons either way. So I think we get a close game, which means I'm projecting at least 10 carries here for Algier. Even after limiting Cleveland last week, and we saw, Judkins get there on touchdowns, but not really on efficiency. The Dolphins are still 29th in yards per carry allowed on running back runs. Algier also has a roll near the goal line. He always has that. So you have the touchdown out. I'm not saying like he's going to have a massive game because obviously Bijan Robinson is there and that's going to be the guy, but he could get 60 yards and a score against this defense. And, especially with 6 teams on bye, that's a good outing. So this is a really good spot. If Algier's on your bench, this is a really good spot to throw him in there as a bye week replacement and, hope he gets you 10 to 12 points and hope that that's enough to get you by. Yep. I'm surprised you didn't bring up the guy that you try to steal from me, Dalton Schultz, as an option.
That's not fun. That's not any fun. But Dalton
Schultz, it's there for him this week. Like if Collins is out, and Collins, I mean, he was a DNP on Wednesday. If you have in the concussion protocol and you're a DNP on Wednesday, generally you're not going to play, right? And so we're assuming that he's out. But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be crazy. I mean, I have Algier just ranked as an RB2 this week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But he's still available. I made a rule that I'm not going to write about him in the waiver column anymore because I don't understand why he's available in the leagues that he's available in. But yeah, he should be rostered and you should play him. But there you go. That's where we are. Now that I've said that, the Dolphins are going to score 30 points in the first quarter and Algier is going to end with
I think you're safe on that. I think you're safe on that front.
No, we're going to have buddy,
they are going through the Dolphins are literally the "this is fine" meme. I actually think that they should make everyone finish the season out this year, because everyone is miserable. They're miserable, dude. They're down bad. Mike McDaniel, he's just progressively gone into the heart of darkness this year. His post game, when he was talking about, they asked about benching Tua, and he's like, well, he won't throw 10 interceptions this week. What are we doing, man?
Yeah, no, it's the vibes. As it turns out, vibe scouting the Dolphins in the offseason was the right call because the vibes for this team have been bad for months and months and months. And since the end of last year, the vibes on this team were bad. And as it turns out, vibe scouting the Dolphins was the right call. We got that one right. But yeah, hoping for the best. All right, that's it for us. We're gonna get out of here. We will be back and talk with you next week. Remember to head over to sharpfootballanalysis.com, click on the blue bar, get the props for a penny. 1 penny for this week. Get all of our week 8 props. You've had a lot of success on them all year. Make sure you check that out. While you're there, check out the worksheet previews from Rich Hribar, the best way to get ready for the fantasy football week. Subscribe wherever you find us, YouTube, your podcast player of choice, wherever you're listening to us. Make sure you subscribe. We really appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next week.